Hello, everyone. How you doing? You can respond and say, I'm good, thank you, and comment in chats. James, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great. It's suddenly lockdown, but it's good.
Loving the lockdown. What month of this are we in? Do we lose? I kind of ran out of fingers to count the weeks, so I assume we're into about month 72 by now.
Yeah, it's a week 12, maybe? This is a bit of a guess. We're somewhere around there.
I don't know. Twitch people, tell us what's going on, because we don't have
what week we're in, what day it is. Actually, I know that.
I know what day it is. It's Tuesday.
Yeah. It's the last Tuesday of the month. That's all I know.
Yes. And do you know how I know?
Month? I'm not sure.
I don't know. We got nothing. So what are we doing today?
No one's posted a comment yet.
What? Hang on. Do we actually go live? Did anyone want to say hello? I haven't jumped on. Hey!
Yes.
All right. The ratio is here. Cool, Francis. Are we counting the days now? Because we don't know what we're like. Yeah. Steve, Muttley, hello, evening, greetings, all that sort of good stuff.
People there listening.
Shenanigans are welcome tonight. Feel free to hang as much rubbish on me as you want in the chat stream. I will appropriately respond. I'm sure James will filter me nicely. Sarah, hi. Muttley's in it, happening. But James, we probably should cover a few things just at the start in terms of
giveaways. Yes, so look at that. But unfortunately, it's not money, but we have an extra set of licenses thanks to Francis. So we've got the usual JetBrains ones, and then we've got the Ozcode ones. So
Ozcode.
Francis is going to run the Ozcode one. So he's going to also be listening very carefully to see two questions to ask you guys. And I'll
we can invite Francis into the stream at the end. You can ask the questions, assuming you're in a decent state, Francis, and are
you dressed
for human consumption.
Yes, we could. Do you want to come into the studio? Comment down below, Francis. I can send you the link. At the end when we've got it. So
this is proving that we are completely planned, and this is very much well produced and very professional.
This is very true. Well, we can go either way, the chat or the
I so want to see that haircut now.
Are you joking, Francis, or is that true?
Oh, come on, man. I want to see it.
We can stick with comments, or maybe it'll be better if you come in, actually. All right. Well,
we all need to laugh at someone else's misfortune during lockdown, so you're it for tonight.
You've still got the live demos.
You're right, Sarah. They will go back for some of this.
Oh, let me play my little violin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So JetBrains, Ozcode, and Mayhem is pretty much what we've got covered for tonight. Do we have any industry announcements? Yes, I am, Mr. Glav. Hello. Yes, Glav. I've always critiqued hair. Like all good critics, you don't have to be good at what you do. You just have to tell someone else they suck. The industry news, .NET 6 release candidate 1 is currently out. 2 should be pretty much happening, and the GA is still set for November 9th or whatever it is. So hopefully people have started updating. I've started updating some of my code for 6, and it's pretty straightforward, very simple. And again, a little bit of a performance bump because the framework's better. What else have we got happening around the place, James? We were talking before, and then my goldfish memory kicked in.
I don't think we had
NDC. Was NDC happening? Something happened.
Was it last month? I think.
Oh, we missed it.
Yeah.
It's a blur.
School holidays are on, so my life is extra busy.
Oh, excellent. So the boys in the background lurking, waiting to come in and mess up the stream.
Oh no! Add value. Add value.
Add value.
No, they might be watching, so watch what you say.
Oh, hi, boys. Your dad's great. All right.
Yeah, so the star of the show today is not one of our usual members to come in, but Richard himself. So we're very privileged
I apologize in
to
advance.
get to see Richard this month. But no, he's got some cool stuff to show us. He's been working on the last few months.
James says without having seen it.
Hey, you told me about it like 2 months ago.
All right. All right, so we'll kick in. I figured what we do this month based on, oh, there we go. There's a bit of screen sharing happening.
Okay, I'll put you on top, Richard. There you are.
Well, there's only 2 of us, so when the questions come up, it's not going to cover my face anymore. So, you know, if I need to hold something up in front of my face so it looks like there's a question being asked or answered, then that's perfectly fine. So what I wanted to cover this month is basically the idea, what do we need to do if we're going to go from 0 to building some sort of design system and particularly a component library around that, thinking about front-end web and everything else. And so this thing you can see on the screen here has kind of, you know, a bit of a style to it, a funky animated button. I'm not going to get that far in terms of the time, but I do want to do kind of the text box section here where we can see we've got effectively a text box that when we get focus, it's moving the username label up and shrinking it, and kind of how do we do that and how would we then roll this out in building our own library. To put that together, we're going to play with a few tools. One of those is Vite or Vite or Vite, or I don't know, I don't speak French, so I think it's just Vite or Vite or something with a bad accent. And if anyone does speak French, yes, Francis, neon buttons, you are so behind the game. You don't wait till you see the CSS for the buttons. But we'll use Vite, we'll use Tailwind because I hate a whole lot of CSS. And so anything that can make it a little less noisy and easier to use, I am down for. We're also going to play with styled components in React. If you haven't seen these before, this is kind of cool. You can basically inline styles with your components so that you've got scope styling on the component. Either as CSS or as attributes with classes, which we'll see as we go through things. And of course, we have a stock ticker. Oh, wait, no, that's actually just bad animations. And we'll be playing with Storybook to host and test the component library as we're going and putting things together. So thank you, Steve, for helping me with my pronunciation, because typing pronunciation for me to do it, it doesn't help at all. So with your generous assistance, I'm going to kick across to 2 tools. One of those is the console, and I will go to Net here and just clear the screen. And the other one is VS Code. Exciting, isn't it? I know, amazing. Look at this thing. It's great. Yes, I am welcome. Thank you. And we'll start off by doing, create Vite. So this is going to do the basics, pull it in. We're going to give this a name, which I'm going to call my UI, because why not? Even capitalize it or do something like that if I want. Give it a package name. This is a React one, and we're going to do it with TypeScript, which hasn't come through very well on the screen, but that's okay. And we're done. So we'll CD to my UI and you will watch me fat finger quite a lot tonight. My usual approach to typing is to mash the keyboard, backspace a whole lot, mash it again, keep backspacing, and eventually we'll get there. And we'll run yarn to pull down all the things, which is cool. And again, while that's happening, I'm just going to jump back to the component just so we can scroll down and see what we're doing. So this is the video. I grabbed this off the awesomely named Code My UI website. And it's got a code pen here, which is cool, which gives me a HTML section with the structure in it, which is nice, and the CSS. And as I mentioned, the button for this thing is kind of weird. Because it's actually 4 different spans inside a anchor tag, which has a submit in. It's really weird.
Wow.
And then if you get down to all this,
what
it's
do blind
like,
people see?
it's
Span,
beautiful.
span, blend,
Spam. And then there's like nth child down here with linear gradients and keyframes and like, but basically, I think it's using the span to animate each corner of the box around the outside of the button. So it's like doing weird stuff and then changing the hover effect. And we don't want to do any of that. But now I can't stop the animation happening because I started it. Go me. Jan should have finished by now. Let me jump back here and we'll just run dev, which is cool. And if you haven't seen Vite before, it's pretty quick in terms of getting started. And we're done. First load. Cool. And to make sure, we will go to I love you 3000 here.
You know, Vite means like quick in French.
It does. But you said it like a French person, so I'm impressed. So it's running. That's about as exciting as it gets. And I'm going to throw most of that code away because I don't need it. Instead, I want to come over here, make sure we're in our stuff. So what we've loaded, React 17, the DOM, TypeScript here is sitting there. We've got some stuff with Vite for plugins for React. What else we got? Not much. So boom, cancel that. All right. Next, we want to put in Storybook just to get the basics together. So we're going to go npx, and this is following the instructions from the Storybook site. And load that in. Storybook needs to be installed into an existing project, which is why we created it first. You don't create a Storybook project. You create your normal one and then add Storybook to it. It's going to throw into the source folder that's being generated here a number of stories, which are effectively our shells and small bits of code to load up the components and put in any arguments you want so that you can have them appear on screen. And we'll see that with the button in a little bit once, again, it does things. So moving across to Storybook, are there any questions so far? Not yet. Excellent. I'm bamboozling you with words. So the Storybook UI basically is this kind of browser view or of different components, and the stories are the ideas here where you've got, say, the histogram in a default state. What does it look like when it's empty? What does it look like with normalized data? And as you can see with the animations as they're moving through things, you can get an API view of what's occurring and play around with that. So you can also do live testing of a component in isolation. How many, out of curiosity, how many of you on the stream have used Storybook before and hated it? And others who've gotten used to it and actually like it? And those who've never seen it before, I'm looking for responses. Nothing yet. James will shout out when they come through. But that's what we're going to play with anyway. And as you can see, there's a whole range of different frameworks that Storybook works with. React Vue, my favorite Vue. I was going to do this in Vue, but everyone tends to use React these days, so go with the crowd. But also, I've ran across different frameworks I haven't heard before. Mithril, never heard of it. Svelte, I know. Riot, don't know. Rax, there's just stuff happening everywhere. And as you can see, 11 million installs a month. It's reasonably well used across the industry. Okay, so a few front-end devs love it. Excellent, Muttley. I love it. All right, so where was I up to? It's doing its thing. Adding Storybook. Yeah, come on, do your stuff. Yes, are you finished yet? Come on, life's too short. Dum, 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 dum. Goes faster when you're not streaming. Did you know that? It's really weird. All right, come on. There we go. You can do it. Fill the silence, Richard. Make up noise, make songs, sing to people. Ask James how his day's been. How's your day been, James?
It's great weather today, Richard.
Did you go outside?
I did, actually.
Wow.
It was actually quite a nice day.
So you don't work in IT, obviously.
I thought I'd got tomorrow will be raining. All right, have we managed to fill the time yet, Richard?
I don't know. I'm waiting.
Oh,
It's
hang on,
doing
it
things.
hasn't finished. Come
It's
on.
doing. Look, stuff's happened. It's brought in MDX things. It's brought in other stuff.
Have we downloaded the internet yet? Come on.
Well, it is. I know it's like JavaScript land. I cleaned out a folder after doing a dry run of this yesterday, and it was only deleting 300 meg of stuff. It's weird. It's like a small project.
300,000.
All right,
well.
done finally. All right. Well, actually, not quite done finally, because as you can tell, it still hasn't said you can have a console back. But I am going to run Yarn Storybook in just a second. So here we can see package JSON's loaded up a few things. So we've got a few extra tasks as well. So start Storybook, port 6000. I'm going to quickly just update this as well and put in modern so that it uses modern browser details and features and all that good gear. And that's about it. So I will save that. And then we're going to do this Yarn Storybook and just make sure everything's working. And what you'll see is that this, again, is going to take a little bit because it's going to use Webpack 4 by default to load things up. Even though I've got Vite for my main project, Storybook goes, I love Webpack 4. It's my favorite. So you can see that's the default there. And I'm going to go, you know what? Do I want to wait for the whole thing to start? It's only taking like forever to build 100,000 million modules. So I'm going to change its configuration while it's, maybe not while saving it, while it's loading up. But what Storybook does behind the scenes is it adds this folder here, .storybook, which has a main file in it, which is where your configuration is. So just like most things, there's a configuration file, like we've got Vite config here, like we'll have other config files. The preview.js for Storybook is so you can change some of the visuals of how the UI behaves. We're not going to mess with that. We're just going to stick with the pair of defaults. So this will do its thing. We're going to then, come on, add some stuff. And I don't want to change it just yet. All right, we're getting there. Cool. Only took a minute for the preview to start, and just to make sure it's working, let's go back here. Here it comes, and here's the actual UI, which has loaded up an introduction page. Now, interestingly, that's not actually how the stories are configured. If I go to source control, what am I saying? Source control. If I go to the source, it's actually got a bunch of stories in here. So you can see I've got a story and the structure of it, or the button one's easier to do. I import a button. I have some metadata around how that story will be displayed. And then I've got the different stories. So here's my primary button. Here's my secondary button and the args to trigger it. Here's a large button, a small button, etc. So you can run these different stories, configure things, and have effectively your different use cases around how a component might be used on a single page, so you can explore it and make sure it works well. These aren't appearing because I'm using Yarn, which by default loads up with plug and play mode. And Storybook Builder doesn't like that very much. So we're going to do two things. One is I'm going to switch the builder to Vite, and then the other is kick into node module mode effectively. So let's kill that. And we'll go yarn add -d, and I'm going to save myself a little bit of typing simply because you've seen me already butcher things, and I can't even copy and paste correctly. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go into the config that I just showed you before over here in main, incoming error in node sass. All right, clowns. And I'm going to add the config here for to use the Vite builder, basically, rather than Webpack, which is all good there. So fairly small changes. And again, the documentation around this is pretty good. And the other one change I need to do was tell Yarn. Oh, go me grabbing my bullet points. I told you I can't copy well. Tell Yarn that it's meant to be using the link to one, so we'll just make sure everything's good again before we do that. It's just got to rebuild itself, which is not a big deal. for those who are interested, that command line I did just added a little note, yarn config here, if you haven't seen that before. And then, all things being equal, I'm going to kick this in any minute now and start it again. All right, while that's thinking about life, because that's obviously got some stuff to do, we might do a little cleanup in here as well. I'm going to go and nuke pretty much everything out of here, actually. Let me go, because I don't want any of this stuff. We're building a library. I don't want all the defaults. I'm just going to get rid of it. Yes, move to the recycle bin. Goodbye. And I might actually get rid of the assets as well. Get rid of that. And do I want to get rid of things in here? Probably. I don't care about all these. I'm going to get rid of you guys. Goodbye. And I'm going to leave main and just rename this to index. This is going to be the base of my library. And I'm going to take this, get rid of you, and I'm going to start by basically saying I'm going to build that text box component. So if it's going to be in my library, I need to say I need to export this once I build it from, and I haven't actually defined the library yet, but it'll be component/text box or the component. And from a library perspective, I just keep building this up over time. So as I do another component, I do another export. And I use this as my entry point for the library so that when we're compiling everything and packaging it all up, it knows where we're coming from. Then I need to go here and add a new folder. We're going to call this components. And still doing its thing in the background. That's great. And we'll do a new file, textbox.tsx. Sweet. Which is going to be our component, obviously. You almost there? Cool. All right, let's just make sure you're still working. All right, so this one, if you recall, was doing Webpack before. We've changed the builder. And given I've just nuked half the stuff, it's probably not going to work because I'm mid-change. That was thinking ahead. I kind of did stuff. Won't actually have anything to show me because I blew everything away. So I'll probably get an empty shell, but that'll do its thing. Let's actually finish what we're doing here and think through what our component is. So the component, again, coming back, we want is effectively going to be this section. So a div, an input, a label, close the div, and then we'll play around with the types in there. So that's the structure we want. And then we're going to steal, hello, Storybook launching while I was in another tab. Thank you. We're going to also steal the styles in here. So we have, for example, login box, the headers, and a few other things that are happening in there. So we'll take that CSS because I don't want to repeat it. What you'll also see is that the build is a bit quicker. It's without streaming, it's actually like a couple of seconds to load it up at most. But keep an eye on that. We'll do that over time. All right. So I was here. And I was going to make myself not type things because it gets bad. And I need to probably import React from React. Right, and text box. And let me just bring this across a little bit, make it a bit easier. Actually, I might turn off those overlays. Overlay settings. Where are the settings for the overlay? Anyone know? Is it over? No, what's it called? What are they called? Inlays. Inlays, not overlays. Inlays. Get rid of the hints. Go away. You're annoying me. Cool. There we go. Right. Fairly straightforward. I'm going to take that now and we should be pretty good, I hope. I don't even need to import React at this point in time. That's all right. Leave it there for the moment.
I've got a question from Andrew.
Oh, yes. How does Storybook relate to Figma? Somewhat related. Figma is more your visual designs and I suppose the Adobe XD kind of approach to things. Storybook is trying to make it more interactive in terms of what you're doing with the components. So instead of here's a design and here's how it looks and I can play with the visuals, Storybook is more the hosting of the actual implementation. So if you've got a design team that's using Figma and putting the designs and things together, that's a great starting point. You can pull out the CSS from whatever they produce potentially, and then drop it into your components and then and go from there. Does that help? Hopefully. Thanks, sweet. All right. Now I'm going to save my components and create a story. So at this point, the component itself is not going to do much because I haven't got anything calling it. So I'm going to add in my story section here a new file called textbox.stories.tsx. So this is the way Storybook tends to work. You have a component and you write a related stories file. Some people will host them in right next to the components. I tend to put them in a stories folder. Just logically, I group them in my head that way better. You can do what you like. There's generally no rules. It's JavaScript. I mean, geez, there's no rules at all in JavaScript. Let's go here and run through what I just pasted in. So React is fine. Storybook has two things. Meta being the metadata around the stories file. So we're going to be using the text box component. And this is specifically related to it. We have down here a story template. So as I do more stories, I could keep the same template and go, let's say we have a password box and we had a property for password or whatever it happens to be to say that this is a password field. We could have that as a second story, which we might get to later if I keep moving fast enough. But the idea here, we take the arguments which are here, that gets passed into the component, as you can see, and then we'll get rendered on screen. So save that, and because Vite didn't have any context around these files before I built them, I'm just going to hit it again and have it go do its compilation, hopefully. And it's going to pick things up. By default, a few things just to be aware of by default. Storybook is going to look for files named stories MDX or stories dot whatever else. That's where it's picking things up from. And then based on that, putting together the site. So there we go, 22 seconds. Still slow, but a lot better than it could be. And hopefully you'll see now on the left, any second now, any minute now, any hour now, any lockdown now. A text box. Hooray. Lovely. Look at that. And we're done. That's it. Thanks, everyone. You can go home. But I have a control here. I can enter things. I have my username label, which is stuck to the side of it. But you'll notice down the bottom here where I've got label, this, because it's dynamic, I can start changing things and you can see it reflecting in the top. So if I'm using Storybook then to experiment with a control, having the properties available here means that I've got more that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting. Even check if my emoji keyboard is working. And oh, look at that. That is such a designer.
Gold, Richard, gold.
So good.
Sarah's got a question for you on
MDX. MDX. All right, so MDX is Markdown with basically the React stuff in it. So MDX is here, MDX. And the idea is you take your story from that you've written and you embed it in the Markdown so that you can have executable stuff. So you have all your Markdown around documentation and everything else that fits in and around the component on the docs page. And then where the story is, it's embedded in line in the Markdown, which means you can build up the things that you see in a lot of the UI libraries where they've got their page and then they embed a section of where the control is and the examples and the API lists and everything else, and have a nice, good documentation experience. So if you're taking your controls and either using them in a large organization internally and want to have a good design system with explanations around when things should be used, what type of situations do you use a primary button versus a secondary, then perfect for that. Or if you're going to take your component library and your design system and make it public, again, you can do that sort of thing as well. So I think there's some examples on or links on the Storybook page around some of the sites that do that with Storybook. I think I can't remember which one of these have a public one of these running, but even still, you can basically take the shell, use it, publish it, and then community can use it, which is awesome. So hopefully that helps. I'm not going to be doing MDX today in terms of what's there. The goal being more just to build stuff up and go. All right, so we have the component. It's running. It doesn't have any styles, so we need to now go and do some styling and make this much better than it is. So this is where styled components can come into play. Again, I'm going to be breaking the config, so I'll stop you for a second. And add styled components. So this, I'm needing to add that first. And then I'm going to add a whole bunch of other things and make Yarn super happy that I've got a whole lot of extra dependencies that I'm going to bring in for dev. All right, that's done. So here I'm going to now add as well, because we're talking about styling in CSS, styled components, Tailwind's just-in-time mode. For those who've used Tailwind before, one of the challenges it used to have was you'd have to build effectively the entire CSS bucket of the universe, and then you'd go and purge out all the styles that you don't need. JIT mode will run through, look through your code and go, you've referenced this style here, I can see this one here, I can see this one here, and effectively just string match and generate just the CSS for the styles that it's identified. So it becomes a much smaller thing, much quicker to build, much quicker to execute. You're not having to go and basically do everything and then purge backwards. You just get what you need. Style components types out of the TypeScript, auto prefixer, which is related to Tailwind, and then some updates to Vite and post CSS. So Vite uses roll up under the hood, so I'm just going to add a little section in there for TypeScript as well. So while that's happening, I'm going to go play around with a few other things. One of those being the Vite config to do everything, because what I want to do, even with what we've got, is do a production build just so you can see how a library is going to look. So let's go to Vite config over here. Now, by default, it's just doing React, which has the hot reload happening in it and not much else. To save, again, a lot of typing, I'm going to bamboozle you with science. But that should be React here because that's old. I don't want to do that. That's cool. Plug in React. Firstly, my library entry is that TSX file I mentioned before. It's not my UI. Richard, you copied the wrong thing, but that's okay. So I'm going to have, that's my library. That's the name of it. TypeScript settings that I'm passing to Vite, I'm going to resolve anything from source as my root directory. I'm not omitting any code out of TypeScript. I just want the declaration files so they can go in my library. And I'm going to put all my builds into the dist folder, and I'm excluding anything that is a storybook story, basically. I'm externalizing some of the primary components that I will need, being React, React DOM, and the style components, and doing the same for CommonJS builds. And then at the end, also not optimizing my dependency for my UI library, because that's it. So again, it might look like a fair bit of code. A lot of this I picked up literally by copying documentation and just adjusting some of the settings. Fairly easy, fairly straightforward. It doesn't take too long to do. And you can always come back and watch the video and copy it out of here if you want. So that's that piece. The other one that I'm going to do is we just added post CSS. So I need to add some configuration for that. So let's add a new file for postcss.config.js, config.js. And I put that into the wrong folder because I was in the root. That's better. And this again is default Tailwind setup. So no problem there at all. That is literally in the getting started documentation, as is what I'm about to paste from here as well, which is Tailwind's actual config, Tailwind config.js, which is this. And what this is saying is, even though I mentioned purge mode before, what this is doing is going through and saying, these are actually the files you want to look in for the styles that we're using in JIT mode. Again, default settings there, which is cool. And then the other piece is just to go into, now that Yarn's done its thing, to go into my package and add a bit of stuff to say this is a library. So a few things that I'm going to add up to the top section here. Apart from that, you can come back. So the types are going to be in index type definition for TypeScript. I'm going to have, by default, ESM library being built, so ECMAScript modules or ES modules, and CommonJS approaches. So depending on if you use import in or require, I can't tell as a library creator. You can use whatever you like, so I can generate that. And that's pretty much it so far. So let's go have a look at the build. So I'm going to save all that to make sure it's saved and go down here and go yarn build. So build being run the TypeScript compiler to look for any type issues and run Vite build. So if I do that, I now find out how many typos or copy paste errors I've made along the way, which I'm sure James is going to be about 3 or 4. Questions while the build's doing its thing? Found an error. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh, now if you were paying attention earlier, you actually would have seen this. It's one I prepared earlier. So the interesting thing here is TypeScript's going, hey, that's cool, but if you're going to do a text box off the input control, you actually can't just throw required in, because I don't know what a string is. It's Boolean or undefined. So we better fix this and just make true. So I'm going to do that and build it again. So good to know that TypeScript's doing its thing. That's going to now run a little bit better.
Too bad it told you it was line 2221.
Inside React type system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's handy, isn't it? It's great.
Mm. Can you
Let me go into that code and have a look at it.
Yeah.
All right, so building for production, and we're going to have a very small size out of here, you would hope, because there's not much in terms of the library. But I'll just, once the dist folder appears, we'll have a quick look at what's in there. And then we'll go on to the next stage of causing chaos by actually introducing Tailwind into our code base and not just our dependencies. All right, so here we go. We have our index types. We have our component happening here. So these are our type definitions for TypeScript consumers. The actual library is in here is an entire 1.9 kilobytes. Oh, wow. And compressed drops down to 0.87, which is nice. And then the UMD version, slightly larger. But again, types for that and go from there. So that's cool. And if we have a look in the dist folder as well, we can see there's our libraries, there's the index, and in the components, there's our type definition, which includes the one that was generated. You can see it's producing a JSX element. The index here is our export, which we included. And then if I want to have a look at my code of whatever's going on in here.
Oh, is that line 2000 in there somewhere?
No, that's line 10, character 400 million.
You got a question, what are the specs of your gaming PC, or possibly the PC you're using now?
It's running Windows 11. Do you really want me to get distracted and do that at the moment? Can we hold that till the end? Because otherwise I'll start doing things.
Sorry, Andrew. Let's put away.
Basically, it's an i7 XPS 13, 16 gig. Going from there. What was I doing? Now I've been distracted. Oh no.
You're telling us.
Oh, that's right. Tailwind.
Small, right? Yeah.
Tailwind. Okay, so the reason it's small, again, there's no styles yet because our text box at this point, we haven't done anything with it. We haven't put any styles in here. I'm in the dist folder. Sorry, I meant this one. I haven't put any styles in here. We haven't done anything fancy yet. We've basically just got a boring component. So let's go and add some stuff. So I'm going to, sorry, should do it here. A new file. This is going to be my CSS that I'm going to use, and I'm going to call it the very creative Tailwind CSS. And again, default settings here. This is out of the box. Basically, we're saying, hey, Tailwind, use all your base styles, use your component styles, and the utility styles that you include in the packages by default. Happy days. And then in my text box, which I had open before, I'm now going to go and import move my cursor, tailwind.css. So I'm importing the CSS as it stands, and then I'm also going to now start importing styled from styled components. Cool. And first thing I'm going to do is create a style component for the label. So I'm going to create here const styled label equals, and this is how we do style components. So style.label, wow, and this is why I'm not live typing the entire thing, and go from there. Styled label, and I'm going to change that down here to be styled label. All right, now what's that going to do? Let's have a look. Let's go Yarn Storybook and actually see it in action. And what I'll do at this point, I might generally leave this window sitting in the background so that we can see updates happening on the fly. And go from there. So this is going to do its thing. And come on, load up, because this will start doing hot reload soon. So that's cool. And we're started. Awesome. And we'll get the button components, and it'll look a bit strange because styled components have their own default styles. So out of here, back to the styled components page, there are a bunch of actually useful docs, which is always good, around how do you do this, how do you apply it to the basic components and put things together, and how do you do custom styles and extend other things. We're going to go from there. Now, this little loop here that's happening is Tailwind doing its just-in-time mode. Again, does it a little bit slowly on first load because it has to do the scan through and then picks up speed again from there. All right. Come on. While that's doing whatever it's doing in the background and going slow while I stream, I'm going to come down and grab this style here and style the label so that when we're ready, we've got it in play. So this is tag template literals inside JavaScript, which is a funky, bizarre process, but kind of cool. And that's the basis of how styled components works. Bring that in, and this gets treated effectively as a set of parameters to pass into the component here that's being rendered. You done? There we go. Okay, you're done. So we've got the username, the font's changed as you noticed, and the text box is here as well, which is cool. And we can actually see it a little better if I change the background maybe to dark mode. So we can see that's where it is. So that's nice. So we're starting to get something happening here. Now, if I save this.
Hey, Richard, do the styles end up inline or where do they go?
The styles, yep. I can see it here if I do the F12s and try and find wherever this is rendered. So you can see this username thing has just gotten itself all over the shop. Part of that is because I don't want all the styles that are actually here. I've just copied them in for the moment. But if I select this, might be a little hard to make out there. Actually, it is. Let's try and, you go away for a second. You can see it's generated a class here.
Oh, I see.
Behind the scenes. So I don't know if you can make that out too much in terms of resolution for people.
But yeah, random name class, which is
random names, and that's and that'll be sitting wherever it is, somewhere, wherever it got generated. Somewhere in here, you can see like there's all these other classes getting generated as well. So that's cool. And I want to probably bring that browser back to here. Okay, so I don't want all of those styles necessarily because it doesn't work very well. So I'm just going to adjust the styles a little bit based on what's here. But again, that's a bit better. All right, so I've changed the font color a little bit. Maybe I'll do that instead. And as you can see, as I'm doing things, the hot reload and everything else, that was a good choice. Hot reload makes it pretty easy to see what's occurring and play around with things and literally just change the thing, hit save, and it refreshes, which is nice. And you'll go, well, where did my text box go? Well, it turns out that because I'm doing absolute positioning, I've actually just shoved my label over the top of the text box. So that's cool. I don't mind. And it actually works because this is how this works anyway. They're moving the label into the text box, and then as we have focus, moving it up and changing the height. So we want to do the same sort of thing, but I don't want to be dealing with all these styles because now I have to remember where they all are, and I have to remember what color that is. It's not great. So instead, I want to start using, again, Tailwind. So this is a little different now. I can't just put Tailwind styles here because this is for CSS. So I actually have to take that out and put in instead attributes like so, which are going to have within them class name. So I'm basically saying, here's the class name attribute and put in a string with whatever it happens to be. So I'm going to put in the string with the Tailwind equivalents of what I just did as the following, like so. And now you can see we've still got absolute, and I've just put them on single lines to make it easier. And if I say, oh, I should have had Tailwind still open. I've now moved it down here. Let's just clear the background. So I've now changed the label. The positioning's moved, because what I'm also going to do is take this text box and move it down, so I've got room above it for putting in the label when it moves up, basically. So again, I'm now building up a component. I'm building up the library. I want to take this part here and change it as well. So I'm going to create a styled input, which is going to look like the following. Styled input, go from there, and this becomes styled input. By default, when you're using styled components, it's going to pass these attributes through to the child, so into the actual input box. So kind of gets passed through. Anything it doesn't understand at this level will get passed through to the component here. Now, if I go and save that, there we go. There's our text box. Ah, damn it, thing didn't work. Why didn't things change? Why didn't the label move up? Well, I haven't actually set anything up. So again, looking at the component here, scroll down a bit further, you'll see that the way they do this is these pseudo selectors here. So on focus or on valid, it's using a peer selector or a sibling selector to pick up the label and say, hey, the label should move up 20 pixels and change the font size and change the color or whatever else. So how do we do that in here? And again, I'll just bring this back. We do the following. We add a little thing in Tailwind, and it's here, and I go for sibling selector variants. And it has an approach here called peer, and the way you do this is you mark the sibling you're interested in with the peer class. So I'm going to do that. I'm interested in this one. So this is the peer that I want to pay attention to. And when that changes, I want to add some styles and pseudo selectors in my component. So I'm just going to paste a couple more bits in here just for fun. And this is the equivalent of these sibling selectors here. So I'm just saying, move it up, bump the top up by 20 pixels, just a hard-coded 20 pixels, change the text to purple, make it bold, and make the text extra small when the peer has focus, and move the top up so that I don't have any padding. So theoretically, this will now shrink the font, move it up, and then we're going from there. So I'm about to hit save.
Oh,
damn it, I broke it. And you can see there's a little squiggle here saying, what the hell are you talking about? Because I have an extra line. Come on, catch up. You can do it.
You got a slash on the end.
Yep. There we go. Come on. Reload, reload. Oh, down here. I missed one down here. Another squiggle. Thanks for your help, stream. All right, there we go. That's better. And as you can see, it just moved. So that's cool. Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Oh, I'm like a real developer.
Have you enjoyed Tailwind? It doesn't look that much easier to read than the CSS.
I actually like Tailwind a lot because firstly, I'm not going to end up with, if I need to change anything, one of the big things with Tailwind is I can come into the config here and I can set my theme up and all my colors and everything else in just one spot. So I'm basically doing all the variable management there. And then referencing things in the components, there's sorry. Here, it's less prone for me breaking things by having some CSS syntax wrong. This either is valid or it's not. It's a little bit clearer in terms of what's going on. At least for me, I'm a mental modeler and doing, moving it in by 4, moving it up. Tailwind by default does everything in
M's? Oh.
M's, rems. Thank
Okay.
you. In rems, so really shouldn't be doing pixels here. I should be doing this as rems, for example, but I was just keeping the same style as what I stole. But that's kind of the way to approach it. Now, I mentioned different stories and things like that before as well. And I could do something else, by the way. This section here where I've kind of repeated myself a fair bit. I don't really want to be doing that. I can make this a little simpler and basically just go and throw in, for example, a little helper method up here that has all that stuff as a parameterized thing. And then I change this and make this just evaluate on the fly. And say this is then going to be, peer selectors. Which one did I just do? This was focus, I think it was. That in, and obviously just quickly do that so that I actually evaluate it. So inline string interpolation, happy days, and then that makes it clearer that these are selectors for what I'm doing, and this was valid, I think it was. Save that, and again, everything's still good.
We had a question around the peers there, Richard. So you didn't specify which peer, so any peer will trigger?
The peer with that one on it. So
right,
that's the style. That's the documentation from Tailwind. So you can see here again, mark the sibling you're interested in with the peer class, and then use your variants after that. So if you're interested in two of them at the same time, you probably have to look at the Tailwind docs a little bit more on how to do that. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Fair enough. That's cool.
All right. About the only other thing that might be worth doing, just as a very quick example, is other stories. So we had one story here. What if I wanted to go and add a new one? I could add a new file here and maybe do like example form.tsx, for example, in the example form. And in this one, effectively just hard code how I might want to lay out a form where I've got, that username and password configuration that we talked about. Now, type doesn't exist yet. Oh, no, that's the standard type. That's fine. But I'm including the components. The convention here is that the title section is going to be like where components is up here. So if I go and save this, nothing will happen because I need to go and tell Storybook that I've added some new files. So I'm just going to quickly break that and run it again. Relaunch. I did actually save that, which I did. This will then kick in and we'll get the new page in just a second. And wait for it. Come on, launch on top of me while I'm talking. You can do it. You did it before. Run, damn you, run. And then I'll just do a production build as well so we can see the full size and then go from there. All good, Muttley. Excellent. Come on.
Coming up to 8, Richard, by the way. 7:59.
Oh, I got seconds to go. And then we have to ask questions.
Little. We won't pull the plug on the 8 exactly.
Because we always cut other presenters off on time, so it's only fair.
That's how we roll.
Come on. Come on.
Come on,
Come on, Cletus. Let's go. There he is. Oh. Did I type something wrong? Why haven't you loaded up? What did I miss? I didn't miss anything. I have my component, my thing. Where are you? Come on. It's going to make a liar of me right at the end. Fail. What are you telling me? New dependencies. Okay, updated. JIT. Currently in preview. That's fine. That's fine. Don't care. All right, that should work unless. Oh, I know what I did. Got stories. Remember the rules around how we pick it up. All right, and you can see actually, look, page reload from there. What did that do in the background? I have no idea, but there we go. There's my example. Happy days. And there's a form, and as I type into it, I have broken something, probably because, did I change something in the text box component as I was doing things? Possibly.
Selectors.
No, it should be fine. The peer selectors in here will be, they're within the component, so they'll all be generated as we go. Let me check this text box. Oh, I've broken the actual component. All right, that's fine. Peer selectors, because I did something which I'm not going to chase at the moment because we're out of time, and you saw it working before. So I would do what I usually do, which is Control-Z my changes and work out what I did wrong. Is it the name? No, shouldn't be. But that's okay. Not a problem. Not a problem. There we go. So hopefully, in terms of the run through, production build very quickly as well. So hopefully you get an idea then of how do we go putting things together. So we started off with nothing. We did Vite be our library builder. We made a few changes to the library itself in terms of package JSON to make it compile as a library, which we're about to do now so that we can then redistribute. We use Storybook as a testing framework for our components. So we can do visual testing as well as, obviously, I could go and write jest tests for any behaviors that I wanted as well. We're using style components, so I don't have to go and do a whole lot of work around low-level components and having some flexibility there, and managing CSS across a whole project. We added Tailwind as well, so we've got consistent styles, and then I could theme this up and use Tailwind's features around theming. And you can see now the build has also generated a style file here, which is right there, a whole 3K of CSS. And if I wanted to look in the dist folder so you could actually see it, there it is. What's the word wrap thing? Word wrap. There's all the styles that it's bringing in. Lots of stuff, fonts, colors, standard heading components, all the defaults that it's picking up out of those things, but it's only brought in the bits that I'm using, which is nice, and some default ones. Obviously, headings, for example, are likely to be used elsewhere. And the overall size is not too bad. Now, obviously, as we build things up and add lots more components, the size will increase, but it's nice to keep that small and concise from the start, which is cool.
Is it loading fonts from somewhere as well?
Yeah, the font settings here.
Good.
So if they're loaded, they'll load up. There's no web fonts being loaded or anything like that. So that's just straight off the default
or whatever.
Yeah. So just all the usual fallbacks. And again, that'd be one of those things which I've done elsewhere, like at work, for example, where you bring it in inside here. So use your theme and your different variants, as they call it, to load up any web fonts, and they'll then get included in your CSS file, and if you want to package it that way. And we're good.
Very good. You had 2 requests for a link to this in a repo somewhere.
Sure, I can do that. Let me get the version that works a little bit better, but yeah, I can do that, no problem at all. And then I'll post that in the meetup so that you can find it.
Sounds good. Any other questions from the comments?
Doesn't look like. No worries. No worries. Thanks for that. The specs of my machine. Do we want to do that? I don't know. How do I do it on Windows? 11.
Hey, this is Andrew. This is the .NET bit now, almost. Or at least it's Windows.
It's PC. Isn't it my PC or something? I don't know. Let's go to settings. There you go. i7, 16 gig. Woo! With the Windows Feature Experience Pack. That's true Windows experience. Not very exciting. It does the job. It's a nice little machine. I like it. James.
Right. I think you answered everything, Richard. So it's just
Right, cool.
questions. All right.
Gosh. So I have to know the answers to these questions myself.
Only if you want a license, Richard. All right. So what are 2 things you can use Storybook for?
I'm waiting for the responses. Type fast, people.
Hey, I like your talk too, Richard.
Thank you.
Really good.
Testing components in isolation. Cool. That's part 1. We need 2. Yes, Gareth, that is completely incorrect. Documentation, yes, that's another thing. MDX, not
MDX,
N,
yeah.
but that's okay. I can't complain about typos. Sharing is caring.
We got someone who's got 2, or has everyone just got 1?
I'm not sure. It looks like we've all spread it across everything. Sharing is hospitalization. Francis, we'll get you in on the stream so you can show your haircut. Split the license in half.
Someone quickly look at the website.
Oh, let's give it to Sarah, because she actually put in at least 2 answers. Because using MDX is one of the things you can do it for.
All right. That does actually overshadow my next question, which was about
does it?
MDXs, but that's all right. I'll have another.
Sarah, you ruined it.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So I think you've already emailed me, but email me again with your email address. Sorry, send me a meetup message with your email address, and I'll send you the next license. All right. Well, I was going to ask you about MDXs, but I think Sarah has already said that they're for documentation. So let's have another question. So why would you? I know what does Vite use instead of Webpacker? There you go. Off the cuff. Bit harder question, maybe.
Oh, yes.
You're all listening, right? Richard mentioned it at least once.
Yeah, and it's not on line 13 at all.
I think you only mentioned it once.
When I brought in one of the components. Tree shaky. No, I think James is referring to something else.
Starting with a R. Oh,
yes, Gareth.
Gareth, you win.
Genius.
All right. The LOL, I don't know whether it's got the LOL library.
I think he was trying to answer the second question. It's roll up and LOLs.
All right. Well, I think you win, Gareth. So send me your email via meetup message, and you will be the proud owner of a JetBrains license for anything in their fine stable of many tools. Yes. All right. Well, Also, we have Francis is going to
Do
do.
you think they check on how well we promote them? Because we might not have as many licenses to give away if that was the case.
hey, I said nice things. What are you complaining about?
No worries, Nutley. Let's do the other. Are we doing the other giveaways? We got Francis.
Yes, having set the bar, now Francis, it's your turn. All right, Francis, you're going to. I think Francis got 2 licenses to give away, right? So
he does.
Two questions, Francis, and you get to choose who gets them.
Oh, he's typing them in. See, you still should have joined the stream. We could have done you with
like camera off.
Oh.
That was an easy one.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Steve, looks like you win. Whoops. You got a comment coming up just when I clicked. Here you go.
All right, question 2. Do we have question 2? Oh, the peer class variants.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Can I cheat?
All right.
Yep.
We've got a second winner as
well.
Dash
valid or anything else, just any of the usual pseudo selectors works there. Beautiful. Nice. Mr. Sue, how you doing? Nice work on that. Good job.
All right, so Francis is asking you to message him on Meetup.
Which is cool. And I think, is that it? We're done? That's the end of the show?
Yeah, sorry. 4 licenses is all we've got to give away today.
That's it. Very good.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you again, Richard. That was
You're welcome. Welcome. I hope it was useful for everyone. And there's something different anyway for you to have a look at.
It's nice to see how it all goes together.
Lovely.
All right. And if anyone would like to give a talk, please let us know. Send us a meetup message. And what have we got? We're in September, so there's still a couple of chances left this year.
October, November, and anyone who feels like turning up during the Christmas New Year period.
Well, you never know. We might be allowed to leave the house. We'll see by Christmas. So there's only 2 more meetups. So if you want to give a talk, 2 months to go. So
there's not just 2 more meetups. We'll keep doing them next year. Don't panic, everyone.
That's true. We plan to continue next year. All right.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Steve. And we will catch everyone else next month. We kind of need outro music or something like that. I'm just going to hang up.
Goodbye, everyone.
I'm not singing, no.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.